Welcome to the 9/8/2014 webinar series on Australian immigration, and thank you all for joining us. Helen van Dadelsden, Conference Partnerships Manager at the International Aid Society, will walk you through the various visa application processes available depending on your nationality, purpose of travel, and eligibility to enter Australia and attend AIDS 2014. So please, to allow all the participants to hear the presenter, do not unmute yourself during the webinar. Your questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation.
Hello everyone and welcome. Today I'm going to cover various aspects of getting your visa so that you can attend AIDS 2014 in Melbourne, Australia in July. Today we will cover the various visa options and processes, more details about the visitor visa, which many of you will need to apply for, explain where you need to apply, give an overview of the visa requirements, those are the general, character and health requirements, suggest some recommendations to you, and talk about the visa denial. Before I start, I just wanted to stress that the conference and the conference partners are not in a position to intervene in the immigration process. Ultimately, it's the Australian government who makes the decision on who gets a visa. However, we've been working closely with the government and other partners to put together adequate information for delegates to help you through the process. We also share our registration data with the Immigration Department so that they're able to verify delegates in the visa applications. So briefly, as an overview, I want to explain to you exactly what you need to do to get your visa. First, you need to get all the information you need together, and you should do that as soon as possible. Attending this webinar is one of the ways that you can do that. We have also put together some fact sheets, and we also encourage you to look at your embassy's website to see exactly what requirements you have for your country. It's also important for everyone travelling to Australia to have a passport which is valid at least 6 months from the entry into the country. Your visa will be attached to your current visa passport. Then, no matter which visa you're applying for, you need to complete the form, whether it's online or the paper form. And we're encouraging people to do this before the middle of May. The reason it's middle of May is that we want to make sure that as many people as possible can get their visa in time to attend the conference. And in some places, the application process can take 2 months. The other thing is to pay the fee. Most visa processes occur a cost, a visa application fee, so you obviously need to pay that before your visa application can be processed. And then it's a matter of waiting for the outcome and responding to any questions from the visa officer if they want more information. So your visa process depends on your nationality. We have a simple diagram here to explain which visa process you need to follow. So you can see there in the orange boxes we have the ETA, which is the Electronic Travel Authority, we have the e-Visitor, and we have the Visitor Business Stream Visa. Most visitors to Australia will actually have to follow the Visitor Business Stream Visa, and that's the more complicated process which I will go into later. However, if you hold a passport from one of the countries that are in the upper boxes, you can choose or have to take one of the other processes. So for example, if you're from Canada or the United States of America, you should follow the ETA process. If you're from Austria or Norway or the United Kingdom, you can choose whether you go to the ETA process or the e-Visitor process. If you're from the Czech Republic or Poland or Slovenia, you need to follow the e-Visitor process. And as I said, all other nationalities need to follow the Visitor Business Stream process. So what we call the simpler processes are the e-visitor and ETA. Now both of these are, well, the ETA is quite cheap, it's only 20 Australian dollars to process, and the e-visitor is actually free. You can do both of these either online or through an agent, and that can be your travel agent, a specialist service provider, or an Australian visa office. Although I said everyone should apply before mid-May, for these processes, usually the processing is quite quick, so you only need to apply at least 2 weeks before. However, we recommend whenever you travel, no matter where you travel to, it's better to get your documents in order as soon as possible. For these processes, health insurance is also recommended. So once you've applied either online or through an agent, you will be able to get the outcome of the application quite quickly. It's either sent to you by email or by letter within 2 weeks, if not within a couple of days. You should print the confirmation email letter and have it with you when you travel to Australia. It's important to note that the information is stored electronically and connected to your current passport. Therefore, if you change passports after you actually get one of these visas, you need to reapply. It's important to note that if you've had any criminal convictions, you should apply for a visitor business stream visa instead. Now I'll go into more details on the visitor business stream visa. We're expecting over half of the delegates for AIDS 2014 to follow this process. And it does apply, vary slightly depending on your country. But basically, as I've said before, you should apply at least 2 months before you travel, and that's why we're saying the middle of May. If you're waiting for the outcome of your scholarship application, your abstract, or workshop or other submission, you should already start getting your documentation together so that you're ready to apply as soon as possible after your notification. It's not necessarily means that if you apply later than mid-May, you may risk the visa not being processed on time to attend the conference. But the Australian government knows to expect some later applications as well, and in some circumstances that can't be avoided. But the earlier you apply, the better. You must apply online or through the post, and the form that you fill out is 1415, or you can use service delivery partners in some countries. And this always depends on what country you're applying from. So I really encourage you to check out exactly what you need to do there. It's important to note that you do not need to travel to another country to visit Nairobi, Kenya, for example, to apply. But you must factor in the delivery or post time, as this may add a delay to receiving your application in time. There is an application fee of 130 Australian dollars, and this is non-refundable. You may also incur additional fees such as postage, translation, service delivery, or certification of your documentation. So it's worth thinking about the costings of that before you apply. For some countries, you will need to go through a biometrics screening. And this is quite a simple process, but it involves you providing a 10-digit fingerprint scan and a facial photograph. And it's collected at an Australian visa application centre or an Australian biometrics collection centre. And all the information is on your country's website. It really is a quick 5-minute process that should be taken into consideration when applying. Some examples of some countries where biometrics are requested are Nigeria, Ethiopia, Ghana, Kenya, Lebanon, Zimbabwe, Pakistan, Jordan, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, and there are a few others as well. So please check if you think you might be on that list. Then you must submit certified copies of original documents, including your passport. Now it's really important to note you're not sending your passport and your original birth certificate or any other documents. You should get everything certified. Now, certified copies, that means that you need to have them authorised or stamped as being a true copy of the original. And a person or agency recognised by the law of your country will do this for you. All departmental offices outside Australia have a person who can certify or witness documents, and you may need to pay for this service. Then you also need to have as I mentioned before, a passport which is valid at least 6 months from the date of entry into Australia. Now, notification of the outcome of the application will be sent to you by post or email. Usually, there is no physical stamp or sticker which is attached to the passport. You should print the letter or email and have it with you when you travel to Australia. But again, this is electronically stored, and the immigration staff at the border will be able to see that from your passport that you have the visa. Now, in terms of where to apply, as I said, you don't need to travel to another country to do this. If you don't have an Australian office that's able to process the visa in your country, you have been allocated another country. For example, in Ghana, there is an Australian High Commission in Accra. However, they cannot process the visa. Therefore, you need to send all your documents to Nairobi, Kenya. There is also a service delivery partner agreement in an office in Ghana as well. So I've just given some examples of people who have countries where people have registered for this webinar on this page, and I really just urge you to check exactly where you need to apply and factor in the cost and the time that it might take to post something to that office and to wait for that response. There's also a link there to find out which office will be responsible for your application. If you're not sure at any time, please feel free to contact the Conference Secretariat. I'll give the contact details at the end. In terms of visa requirements, after you've completed the form and submitted all your documentation, this is what the visa officer will be looking for. There are basically 4 broad requirements. The first is that you have a legitimate reason to travel to Australia. And for you, it will be the conference that gives you that legitimacy. So you need to prove within your application and your documentation that you're somehow involved in the HIV movement, whether you're an employee, a person living with HIV, whether you're volunteering, or just have another interest. But you need to show evidence that you are involved. So a letter of invitation from the conference, a letter from your organisation, or a regional network or organisation will all support to show the visa officer that you have a legitimate reason to travel. The second requirement is that they think that you will return to your country of residence. So they're looking to see evidence that you have a life in your country and will want to return to your country after the conference, that you won't become an overstayer. So links to family, work, assets, involvement in the community all count here. But you need to show evidence that you have significant ties to your country. And I'll give some examples of what documentation you could provide a little bit later. So for both of these, you need to really include all the supporting information possible as early as possible in the process, so that the visa officer sees the full picture of your application and doesn't need to go back to you and request additional information. The last 2 requirements, character and health, I will cover in a minute. So the character requirements are basically looking at your criminal and general history. What's written on these slides is quite legalese and not very specific, but it basically talks about if you've had a substantial criminal record or been convicted of any offence that was committed while in immigration detention, or if you have or have had an association with an individual or group who is suspected of having been involved in criminal conduct. This will raise questions for the visa officer. Also, and this is even more generically written, if you have, in regards to your past and present criminal conduct, you are found by the visa officer to be not of good character. Now, we've asked for more specifics from the Immigration Department of Australia, however, they're not able to give more specific information here. They say that every case is dealt with on a case-by-case basis, and it depends on the whole picture of the visa application. Same in regards to your past and present general conduct. So basically they're looking to see that you're a good person. If you have any concerns regarding the character requirements, we really recommend that you seek legal advice on this. The Conference Secretariat and conference partners aren't in a position to be able to give immigration advice as such. However, we do have contacts that we'll be able to share with you if you have specific concerns that will help you through to see if applying for the visa will be difficult for you or not. The final important requirement is that you meet the health requirements. Now, it's important to note that temporary visa applications intending to stay in Australia for less than 3 months are generally not required to undergo full health examinations for the grant of the visa. So you shouldn't be asked, most delegates will not be asked to go for a full health examination. And it's also important to realise that the HIV status is not asked on any of the visitor visa forms and cannot be used as a ground for the denial of a temporary visa to Australia. And we are, of course, aware that the longer-term visas for Australia do have restrictions for PLHIV, but this is not the case for the visitor visa. In saying that, this is one question where a few people have already tripped up when they're applying for their visa. On the visa application form, whether it's online or the paper form, there is a question that says, during your proposed visit to Australia, do you expect to incur medical costs or require treatment or medical follow-up for? And then there's a list of conditions and diseases. And HIV infection, including AIDS, is included here. This question is not asking, are you living with HIV, or do you have hepatitis C? It is only asking, do you expect to incur medical costs or require treatment or medical follow-up? If you answer yes here, you will incur you will have to go through a health screening, and that will delay your application and cost significantly. So what they ask by a significant medical cost is 35,000 Australian dollars and in excess of. So it's unlikely that many delegates would fall into that category. However, you must answer yes to this question if, while you are in Australia, you are likely to require any care in hospital, regardless of whether you'll be covering the cost. If you will require medication that you're not bringing with you, or you intend to undergo any medical procedure. But again, we don't expect many delegates to fall into this category. And as I said before, if you do answer yes, you will be required to complete a health examination at your own expense. And they can be quite expensive, and you have to go to one of their chosen doctors, and it can delay the process quite a lot. So it's worth, if you do have a health issue, it's worth checking the requirements and factoring that into your application as well. The other thing to note on the health requirements is for tuberculosis. A visa cannot lawfully be granted to an applicant with active TB. And on the application form, there is a question regarding TB. And you must answer yes if you currently have TB anywhere in your body, or you're being treated for TB, or you have latent TB, or you have had TB. Basically, if you've had TB ever, you need to answer yes here. However, do note that if you do answer yes, you will be required to complete a health examination at your own expense. So I would say that if you have TB or have had TB, you might look at just watching the sessions online rather than going through this quite stressful and costly and lengthy process to get a visa to attend the conference. Now, in terms of recommendations, as I said before, the Conference Secretariat aren't in a position to give legal or immigration advice. However, this is some information that we've gathered through our conversations with different partners and the Australian government. The first thing to recommend is to apply as early as possible. So I've already mentioned that if you're awaiting scholarship or submission outcome, and you'll get notification of the outcome of those applications in mid of April, I suggest that you already start gathering your documents. And then you should apply as soon as possible once you've found out whether you're going to the conference or not. The second thing is, as I mentioned before, include all the necessary documentation, and do this right from the beginning so that the visa officer doesn't have to come back and ask for additional information from you. So some of the documentation would be the conference letter of invitation, and this can be requested as you register online for the conference, and as soon as you've paid or the registration's been confirmed, you'll be sent a PDF with your details, and the Australian visa officers are looking out for those letters, and they will also verify them against the registration data that we're sharing with them. If you're not actually registering for the conference, whether you're involved in the Global Village or are going to an affiliated independent event and don't intend to register for the conference proper, we suggest that you get a letter from the Global Village organisers or the affiliated independent event organiser, so that you have a letter from Australia inviting you and explaining why you're going to the conference and why that's important. If you are lucky enough to get a scholarship, you will automatically receive a scholarship award letter which details what support you're getting from the conference, whether it's registration, flight, accommodation or per diem. And then any other letters of support that you think would help, whether it's from an employer, your institution, or an organisation that you're affiliated with. And whenever someone is supporting you financially, whether they're paying for your registration or your flight accommodation, it's important to make sure that's detailed in the letter, especially if you don't have a lot of money yourself and if you don't have a lot of experience traveling. The other documentation that you can provide is they request under this visitor business stream visa evidence that your business background is relevant to the nature of the proposed business in Australia. So we know that for many of our delegates, we don't actually work in the HIV field. If you're not employed in the HIV field, simply get a letter from an organisation that you are affiliated with, whether it's an HIV organisation or not, but just stating that you are going and there's a legitimate reason and they hope that you will gain a lot, that you'll bring back the information to them in your country. The other documentation that you should give is, as I mentioned before, meets one of the requirements that you have the incentive and authority to return to your country of residence. So things that will help here is if you do have a history of international travel, that will help. Many of our delegates do not have much international travel experience. So you can provide things like your residence permit, an employment contract, your children's birth certificates, university proof of enrolment, etc. Just showing that you have good links with your country to prove to the visa officer that you're likely to return to your country. If you don't have any properties or assets, you could provide details such as housing contract, or utility bills, or bank statements. Now, unfortunately, we know that not everyone will get a visa to attend the conference. And we just wanted to explain what happens if your visa is denied. So, firstly, you will be sent a notification letter or email which will advise you of the three things. The reason for the refusal, so it might say does not meet character requirements, or there is doubt that this person will return to their country of residence. It will explain the review rights and the time limit for lodging an appeal. Now, personally, I wouldn't bother appealing this. It's very expensive, and just to attend the conference, which will be a fantastic conference, I really don't think it's worth the money or the hassle. So I suggest that you organise an event in your country and watch the sessions online. It is worth noting, obviously, you've been through the hassle and the effort and the cost of applying for the visa. So it's worth noting that the conference will refund the registration fee, minus a handling fee, if your visa is made on time and it's denied. So that means that you must apply before mid-May to be eligible to request this refund. And you will be requested to prove the visa application date and denial. And this must be submitted by the 25th of July, so the last day of the conference, but the sooner the better. And in terms of the other costs that you've already incurred, you can't get a refund for the visa application fee, but you may be able to still get money back on your flight and your accommodation that you've booked. Now, there's obviously a lot of information, and it depends on the country where you're from and which visa application you need to process and your individual situation. So what we suggest is that you have a good look at the fact sheets that we've provided. You look at the embassy's website to find out the details for your country, and you can let us know if you have any particular confusion or difficulties by writing to visa@aids2014.org, and I'd be happy to respond to that. As I said before, we can't intervene in the process, we can't apply for you, and we can't provide you with immigration advice, but we can help you through the process to make it as clear as possible and help you as possible. So now I open the floor for any questions from individuals. Any questions? You can only use your microphone. Oh, that must be very clear. Yeah. Okay. Damani, you're asking a question. Can we provide the application for the visa? I'm not sure what you're asking there. I can provide you with the link to the application that you need online, and actually that's already in the PowerPoint presentation, and it's on the fact sheets. So I'm not sure what else we can provide there. Have I answered your question okay? Okay, good. Thank you. I have another question here. I'm from Canada. I am an invited plenary speaker at an official satellite conference at AIDS 2014. The Australian High Commission in Ottawa told me that I need to provide for a temporary work, short stay activity visa sponsorship. Okay. As I said, we can't advise you exactly, and if that's what they've requested you to do, you need to do that. However, I would look very carefully at the requirements for that visa, because if I remember correctly, it asks for you to, that you're going for non-continuous work or something like that, and chances are you don't really fit into that. So I would really dig deeper and check before you go into that process, because it's much more involved, and it's really for people going to be employed in Australia. And as a plenary speaker, we're not paying you. So I don't think you would fit into that category. But as I said, I'm not in a position to give definitive advice on that. Then I have another question. The media, are we getting a letter of invitation? Yes, I believe the registration, as soon as it's been confirmed for you, so media registrations are free, but you have to upload all your accreditation. And as soon as your accreditation is approved, you should be able to get a letter of invitation automatically. Then, is this PowerPoint available elsewhere? Yes, it will be next week on the same page, on the webinar page when you registered on the conference website. And all this information is also available on the fact sheets. They're available in English, French, and Mandarin, and they're already on the website. And also the recording will be available on the same webpage as soon as possible. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, thank you all for your time today. I really invite you to write to visa@aids2014.org if you have further questions for us. And I also would like to mention here that our next webinar will be on volunteering at AIDS 2014. It will take place on Thursday,
the 3rd of April at 7 a.m. GMT. So please, if you're interested, sign up at aids2014.org/webinars. Thank you again to all of you for joining us, and I hope to see you home in Melbourne. Oh, there's another question. It was approved, but not the letter. So should I wait until I get before going for the visa? Well, yes, but then I would suggest you to write to the registration department. The email is registration@aids2014.org. Good. So thank you again, and see you in Melbourne.